Right, the next shelf sitter, I say that slow, that we're going to do is a little goose. And this is about, now this is a little bit bigger than the normal ones that I do. I think it's about the size of the little bear that we just did. And this is also going to be a multi-part. There's going to be 3 parts to carve on this. I think this is about 4 inches. No, this is about almost 6 inches by 1.5 inches. So this is 6 inches long by 1.5 inches. And then we have the little other parts that go with it. And this is cut out of 3/4 inch basswood. Here's a little wing right here. Goes like this. And then the back leg goes just like this. And this is going to be another little shelf sitter that we're going to do. Now, let me get my stuff all together. Let me reach for my knife and my pencil. Daddy used to call it his pencil. And so the majority is a shaping, basically a shaping type thing that we're going to be doing here. But we're going to go to the beak up here, and we're just going to kind of come down like this and go like this. In other words, sort of swoop down and come down like that. On this side, sort of swoop down and come down like that. In other words, kind of come up like that. Okay? Sort of a... Okay? And that will be our beak for our little goose. And basically, most of it is a shaping process, as we realized with the bear. So this makes these things quite simple to do. And these are a lot bigger than the other one. But let's go ahead and take off, bring down, take your knife and follow that. And let's bring down the... Now, you want your grain. When you cut it, you want your grain to run this way, okay? That's the way you want your grain to run. It is a foggy, rainy day here in Texas. And it is the 1st of March. There's a lot of birthdays in my family in March right now. My grandson, Eli, his birthday is March 9th. And then my son has a birthday March 31st. We adopted him on March 31st. Now we're going to kind of bring this beak down just a little bit. See how we're doing? Okay. It would be 38 years. My son is 38 years old, or it's going to be 38 years old, and I am very proud of him. He has been through a lot in his life, been through a divorce that he didn't instigate, and has remarried a wonderful young lady. And I have 3 wonderful grandchildren by him, and I'm so proud of him. He works in the prison systems we've discussed that before. And of Kentucky. And I pray for him every day because those are some rough prisons. He's in internal affairs, and he's going to be going to Denver, Colorado pretty soon for some FBI training on sovereign citizens and terrorism type stuff that is inside the prisons. Now, if you don't know what a sovereign citizen is, now there's so many different names. I was talking to somebody about sovereign citizens, and some guy said, "Well, I'm a sovereign citizen." I said, "Well, you don't obey the laws of the land?" He said, "Yeah, I obey the laws of the land." And he was more like a nationalist, in other words, a person who believes in rights and stuff. And I mean, yeah, I believe in rights too. I'm just saying, sovereign citizens are a little bit different of a person. They have that a lot in the prisons. They have sovereign citizens, and you have to obey their rights and stuff. But most times, sovereign citizens do not believe they have to obey the laws. They are not under the jurisdiction of the laws of the land. Like, they don't feel they should have to have a driver's license, and they don't feel they should have to have insurance, and they don't feel they should. And I'm not going to get into all that stuff. In other words, whether a person believes that or not. I mean, everyone has a right to believe the way they want to. But I know in Texas, having a driving is a privilege. It's not a right. And you have to have insurance. I mean, liability insurance. You don't have to have collision and all that kind of stuff. But you do have to have liability insurance in case for liability purposes. Now, basically, we're just going to kind of shape this thing. I've just kind of worked this bill down, in other words, and just kind of bring it forward. We're not going to bring it to a point or nothing. You know, we're not trying to get that situation and that, you know. But we want to be able to round our head off. So, sovereign citizens don't believe that they are under the jurisdiction of the United States, that they're under another law. And you have some people. Timothy LaVey was a sovereign citizen. He was a person who didn't feel that he was under the obligation of the United States, of the laws and stuff. And now we're going to go back here to the tail, and we're just going to bring it kind of down. A lot of times they have to be trained because there's a lot of them in the prison systems. And I'm not going to sit here and argue the rights or whatever it is that people have, but I feel a totally different than a lot of people do when it comes to prisons. I just feel when a person goes into prison, I don't think they should have a whole lot of rights. Now they shouldn't be beaten. They shouldn't, they have that right. And Matt is in internal affairs, and he investigates not only prisoners who hurt one another, but also guards who hurt prisoners for no reason at all and stuff. So it's just kind of but when a person goes to prison, I kind of feel their rights are kind of gone. And that may be a strong stance with a lot of people. It's not a political stance. It's just if you're going to prison then you should be in prison. You should obey the prison rules. But so much of this stuff today has just gotten out of hand. And so they have a lot of issues with sovereign citizens and aka terrorist groups. And when I say terrorist groups, their prisons are full of a lot of MS-13 gangs members. And see, in prisons, they basically, when you go into a prison, you have to join a gang of some kind. You have to be associated with some kind of gang or whatever it is. And and if you're not associated, then you probably can't go in the population, because they'll get you. In other words, they'll eat you alive. I mean, that's just the way prisons are. So when a person goes into a gang, they are a lot of times, now they do have where the people say, I'm free, I'm not a member of the gang and all that other stuff, you know, if they have a little group like that. But you have to be a member of some group, and or they're basically just eat you alive. They will. So so naturally, you have to, you know, have something. Now I'm going to kind of bring this down just a little bit back here. But yeah, it's definitely an issue. And so you have to join some kind of a gang for protection and stuff like that. And they have the Mexicana gang, they have the white Aryan gang, they have all kind. They have the Muslim gang. They have all kind of gangs in prisons. And so, unfortunately, maybe that isn't what a person wants to do. But when you go to prison, you know, we have a maximum security prison down here, and they often call it Bloody Beaumont. And you know, it's just it's sad. You know, I mean, it really is. A lot of those prisoners really need the Lord Jesus Christ in their life, and some of them have. But you know, my son says it's a gang. You know, most of them come from a gang life, and it's sad. It's just very, very sad. It's not something that you would like to be a part of. And so the best thing to do is to just not to try to obey the laws and not end up there, you know, in so many ways, because prisons are they're a violent area, they're a violent place. And you know, and like I said, my heart goes out to them. But when you go into prison, I just don't feel that you should have the right to have a lot of rights. Your rights should be taken away from you as far as a lot of things are concerned. So, because you know, prison reform is I don't know if they reform people in prison. I'm not an expert on prison life and stuff. But my son, he works in one, and it's a very dangerous job. And I think I've said this before, if you'd ever told me my son would have wanted to work in a prison, I'd have told you lost your mind. But that's where he is. And in the poor states of Kentucky like that, a lot of people take jobs and go into those type of work, not necessarily because they like it, but because there's not a lot of work up there. He's actually in the part of Kentucky where the coal mines and stuff are. So, but he's given me 3 beautiful grandchildren, and I love them. I go every year to see them, and sometimes more than once a year to see them. And it's a joy to be a grandfather. Grandpa's a good thing. I know when I was raising my children, my son and my two stepdaughters. And had a lot of issues with. I had issues with Matt, but he was just a young boy growing up. And if you're listening to me right now, and you are raising teenagers, just, it won't last forever. I told somebody when Matthew was between the ages of 15 and 20, or 15 and 18, I probably would have sold him to the lowest bidder. But he has turned out to be a very good son, and not been on drugs, not done those things, but been a very good son. And I'm blessed by the Lord for that. I know a lot of people struggle with that with their children and things like that, and he's got a work ethic that is, he works hard, he loves his family, he's a family person, he's not a drinker. He did smoke a little bit, but he quit that. And so he did that, and he's a good dad. And he's tried real hard to become a good son. But when they're teenagers, they just go, and if you just hold on, they'll now this tail, we're just gonna kind of flip it a little bit. In other words, take a lot off like that. See? Yeah, it's trying. It is. Oh gosh, it's trying. But just be kind, and believe me, they get out in that world and they have to work for themselves and stuff like that. I'm gonna tell you something. It changed my son a lot. He realized he had to get things done. So okay, well listen, this is looking good. Now, what we're going to do with this tail right in here is we're going to draw a little line kind of coming here like this. Okay, you come over here and draw a little line kind of coming here like this. But you have all different types of gangs in prisons, and it's not a pleasant life, but most of these people that go into those prisons, they come from gangs and stuff, and didn't have a family perhaps, or whatever it was. And sad. Didn't mean to get off on that subject, but it is a very sad thing. And my son says most of the time when they leave prison, they come back. They don't, because they've lived that kind of life so long, they don't know anything else. Alright, we got the tail kind of this way. And we're just basically we just shape this fella. Now we want to try to keep this side here where the wings go as flat as possible. We want to take, the saw marks off and stuff, but we try to keep it as flat as possible, so when we get ready to put the wing on it and stuff like that, in other words, that it does fit flat against it. And we don't go this side. We shape the wing like that, in other words. So we want to keep it as run as possible. So anyway, old Dad, he had 3 sons. It was me, and I was the middle one. My big brother, who's passed already, and my younger brother, who lives up in Baytown, Texas. And he had his hands full with us 3 boys, I'll tell you. And then my sister, who is also passed. My brother-in-law, who has lived with me for a little while, that was my sister's husband. And now I don't know the full story, but there's a lawsuit against Johnson & Johnson baby powder that perhaps it had a lot to do with ovarian cancer in women. I don't know if that's necessarily true. My sister did die of ovarian cancer, and she used Johnson & Johnson baby powder as a form of for her to smell better and things like that. And so my brother-in-law does have a lawsuit against Johnson & Johnson right now concerning, I don't know what the final verdict has always come to, but they do say, it's kind of like there's so many lawsuits now. We've all used it most of the time. Roundup, has got lawsuits against them for cancer. A person that used a lot of Roundup, I don't think if you just used it every once in a while it was that much, concerning. But people, for instance, in the pest control business or the gardening not pest control, I mean gardening business and stuff like that, used Roundup, and so there is a lawsuit against Roundup, and so there was a lawsuit against Johnson's baby powder, and now whether it's going to come to anything or not, I just don't know. It hasn't yet, basically, with him. But my sister did, pass away from ovarian cancer. And she used a lot of it. So